What is the basis on which they are recommending, not recommending? No guidelines, no rules, nothing. The 11 documents, I can guarantee if your lordship asks them to give how many people have submitted, even one, given large number of dead people have found their way into this, whose forms have been filled up. How? Because the forms have been filled up not by those dead people, but the forms have been filled up by the booth level officers sitting in their offices. Not just documents, any evidence. I would go so far as to say that a declaration, if a declaration is good enough to show my citizenship for a new voter, certainly that declaration is good enough to show my citizenship if I am an existing voter. That has to be the case. So therefore, thereafter somebody challenges that and shows some evidence to show that I should not be considered to be a citizen, then certainly they can give me a notice with the reasons, etc., and go through that process. But not in the manner in which they are doing. Just see what they are doing. There are 8 crore, roughly 8 crore voters. Now they have reduced it by 65 lakh, they are saying 7.24. Even among these 7.24 who they claim have filled up their forms, enumeration forms, for 2 districts we have seen, as Mr. Yogendra Yadav pointed out yesterday, 10.6 and 12.6% are not recommended by the block level officer, booth level officer. Now, they told...
just percentage again.
So, out of these
2
7...
Darbhanga and 1 more.
Kemur.
Let us take as a pilot project.
Yes. In these 2 states, some whistleblower gave us this data about the BLO's recommendation. So there is a chart which we have annexed, that is at page 803 of volume 4A, where the booth level officers have written recommended, not recommended for each person.
What is the percentage with your point?
So 10.6 in one district, 12.6% in another district.
Not recommended.
Not recommended. However, in some particular booths, not recommended are more than 90%. Only 10% recommended and more than 90% not recommended.
So that 10 point something is average.
Average. That means that if assume that these 10.6 to 12.6%, let us assume that this is the average. This percentage of voters have to be given out of the 7.24, have to be given notice to ask them why they should not be on the electoral roll, and they have to be heard. Who is to do this? The electoral registration officer. He has to take the final call. In one constituency, my lord, there are 3 lakh voters. 3 lakh voters. There are 20 working days in which he has to do this. Out of these 3 lakh, even assuming that he gives notice to these 10.6 to 12.6%, which means about 30,000, let's say 10%. He has to give notice to 30,000.
Exercise will have to confine to only those 10-11% only, because those who are recommended, unless the superior authority take a contrary decision, that will have to be accepted.
Yes. Now the first question is, my lord, what is the basis on which they are recommending, not recommending? No guidelines, no rules, nothing. The 11 documents, I can guarantee if your lordship asks them to give how many people have submitted even one document out of these 11, I can guarantee that not more than 25% people whose enumeration forms have been received who have submitted even one document, because we know for a fact that these enumeration forms were filled up by the booth officers sitting in their offices. We have put it on record. We have given videos that these officers were filling up the enumeration forms and signing them on behalf of the voters. That is why, my lord, large number of dead people have found their way in this electoral rolls, which we have given Large number of dead people have found their way into this, whose forms have been filled up. How? Because the forms have been filled up not by those dead people, but the forms have been filled up by the booth level officers sitting in their offices. This is the manner in which, my lord, this whole exercise is being done. Now the question is, no rules, no guidelines. If less than 25% people have submitted even one document, on what basis is the booth level officer recommending or not recommending? How has he recommended for 90% people, not recommended for 10% people? What is the basis? No basis whatsoever. And these 11 documents are not proof of citizenship. How is residence certificate a proof of citizenship?
No, none of the documents can be proved.
So they are at best evidence of either place of residence or evidence of date of birth
Or identity.
or identity. For citizenship, Lord, Lal Babu Hussain and their own SOP, etc., makes it absolutely clear that citizenship you can't decide. You have to presume if somebody, unless you can decide only in such situation where somebody challenges your citizenship. Somebody has made a self-declaration or somebody is already there on the electoral roll. His citizenship is challenged by somebody filling up Form 7. And then you have to give notice, you have to hear him, take any evidence that he gives, including his affidavit. Suppose he has no document. He only gives his affidavit and the affidavit of a couple of neighbors. Unless that is refuted in some way, that should be good enough. Because, my lord, in this country, large number of people don't have a single document. In this also, out of these 11 documents, we have shown that only the matriculation certificate is possessed by about 40% people. But the other documents are possessed by, in totality, more than 50% people don't have a single document because there is overlap between scheduled caste OBC certificate and matriculation certificate. The same people who would be having matriculation certificate may also be having OBC certificate, etc., OBC caste certificate. So therefore, in the absence of any documents, ultimately what will you do? You have to only give a affidavit or an assertion or a declaration, and that's what Form 6 provides that. Therefore, this exercise that they are trying to do, where even assuming that 10% people are to be given notices, 10% means 30,000 people per constituency. You will give notice to 30,000 people, hear them decide in 20 working days. And when you publish the final electoral roll, there is no time because elections are notified by that time, and therefore this appeal, first appeal, second appeal is meaningless. And therefore you have achieved a fait accompli by finalizing the electoral roll in this totally arbitrary manner. Your Lordship has held in my written submissions, I have mentioned those cases where this arbitrary, completely unbridled, uncanalized power has been held to be illegal. This kind of arbitrary power to recommend, not recommend, decide on what basis? No guidelines, nothing. Nothing. Suppose they had said that all right, if somebody produces this, then you consider him. If somebody doesn't produce this, then you don't consider him, etc., etc. One could have understood that there is some rationale to this exercise. There is absolutely nothing.